Welcome to the Pivot Clean Energy Podcast, How the World Cooks, the energy shift you need to know about. I'm your host, Alicia El-Mamouni. On this podcast, we are going to explore everything cooking, how it impacts the world, and why you should care. Let's go. Mr. Jossy Thomas serves as an Industrial Development Officer and leads the Bioenergy Programme at the Just Energy Transition Unit of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, otherwise known as UNIDO. With over 25 years of international technical cooperation experience with UN-ESCAP and UNIDO, he has been actively involved in promoting universal energy access in developing countries. Currently, his focus lies on scaling up modern clean cooking solutions in developing countries and coordinating the Secretariat of the Council on Ethanol Clean Cooking, a network platform comprising 21 member countries dedicated to clean cooking initiatives. We dive deep into international development efforts in this episode, hearing about Jossy's start with UNIDO, developing some of the first mini grids in Nigeria at the forefront of the clean energy transition. Today, UNIDO is supporting, among many of their efforts, bioethanol cooking projects, and we will hear about their program in Tanzania as well as the new endeavor in Madagascar. We will also discuss why clean cooking transitions are so difficult and outline the top 3 opportunities to make a meaningful shift toward access to these technologies. Lastly, we will learn a little bit more about the Council on Ethanol Clean Cooking, a new initiative started at COP28, as well as recent global movement in clean cooking commitments, motivated by a Clean Cooking in Africa summit hosted by the IEA this month. It's a packed episode with insights from an industry veteran that you won't want to miss. Jossy, we're so delighted that you could join us on the show today.
Hi, Alicia. Same here.
We just finished up a series looking at some of the bioethanol basics, going into feedstock around the world, what bioethanol is, where it's primarily used, market dynamics, etc. And so having completed our global tour, just to help provide a greater understanding around the fuel itself, we are now going to jump into a variety of topics with each episode related to everything clean cooking. Today, we are going to get into some of the international efforts surrounding clean cooking and why it's so critical for there to be global engagement on this issue. So let's get started.
Yes.
You are an Industrial Development Officer at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, otherwise known as UNIDO. Can you tell us a little bit about the role and responsibility of that position?
They work with the respective ministries and identify the needs, design appropriate solution, mobilize resources, and support the governments to implement those solutions. And I belong to the Just Energy Transition Unit of the Energy and Climate Action Division of UNIDO. And this division support the member states in achieving their SDG goal number 7, the universal access to clean energy, and also SDG 13, the climate action.
Okay.
Of course, within the mandated area of industrialization, which is SDG 9.
And just for those of our listeners who might not know what SDG stands for, can you just give a quick description on that?
SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals, which the international community adopted in 2015. There are about 17 SDG goals which need to be achieved by all countries by 2030. So it's a development goal set by the international community for the development of the world.
Perfect.
I lead in UNIDO. I lead the Bioenergy Programme and the Clean Cooking Initiative. I also coordinate the Secretariat of the Council on Ethanol Clean Cooking, or CECC, which is a multi-stakeholder networking platform promoting ethanol supply and value chain for clean cooking.
Okay, perfect. Well, you're in the right place to speak to us today then. How did
Exactly.
you actually end up in your current position? What got you into that role in the first place?
That's a good question, and it's a lot of history. um, my involvement with the sustainable development and renewable energy started a long time ago after my undergraduate studies. I did my bachelor's in engineering in India, and then after some traineeships and all, I ended up in the Center for Energy Studies at the Indian Institute of Technology in New Delhi, where I was searching on renewable energy. It was in 1992.
Okay.
It's a year where first climate summit,
Oh,
the
wow.
Rio summit happened, and the UNFCCC was established in the same year. Uh, uh, that means everything was in the beginning, in the early stages.
Yeah, you were right at the forefront of it.
Yeah, so in the place I was working in the solar energy lab, I think in that time there were very few places in India or especially institutions like that. The top end universities only have some solar panels,
Hmm.
and they were all used for experimentation and learning and studies. So
Wow.
I started from there.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And now
And
you look at it and solar panels are everywhere and they're commonplace.
yes, yes, yes. And then I got an opportunity to do masters in energy technology, which focuses on renewable energy technologies and how it can be applied. After the Rio summit, the concepts of sustainable development and renewable energy promotion or were slowly taking its roots. So after my master's, I have an opportunity to work with the Regional Economic and Social Commission of United Nations, where they have an energy unit, and they were um, building capacities and building developing awareness of policymakers and decision makers in developing countries on renewable energy.
Hmm.
So I had the opportunity to support that and work on those areas. Um, and that way, I was growing
Yeah.
along along the line. Yeah. Then I got the opportunity to join UNIDO, and my first assignment was in Nigeria, where I got blank slate to start with, uh, to develop a portfolio of renewable energy projects.
Okay.
So that was a wonderful experience for me, and we were able to, as UNIDO, we were able to develop a number of projects, especially renewable energy based rural microgrids, micro and mini
Okay.
grids.
Wow.
So, so the energy access issues where UNIDO was tackling from that time.
So you helped establish some of the first microgrids in Nigeria.
Yes, yes, yes. I
That's
think,
amazing.
uh, uh, especially I remember an experience. There is a place called
Hmm.
Taraba State, which is in the northern part, bordering with the Cameroon. and it is very hilly terrain and very less population. And there were there were some community problems between the settled farmers
Mm.
and the nomadic Fulani people. They were cow herders, and because of cattle encroach farmers' land and creating some conflicts.
Sure.
Um, so the UN, there was one UN joint program initiated by UNHCR in that region, and they were invited UNIDO to join, and we went there to see. And these communities were very, very poor communities. The only economic activity was a tea garden and a tea processing factory there, and all the community members were smallholder tea gardeners. They supply tea leaves to the factory and they get some returns.
Mm-hmm.
So this tea factory was running on a huge diesel engine,
Okay.
and it was already established a couple of decades already, and they never made any profit. It was
Mm.
always running on loss because they were paying all the money to bring diesel from all the way from Abuja.
Sure.
And So we identified a small dam nearby and set up a small hydro station of about 400 kilowatt, and that transformed that place
Hmm.
within no time. First of all, this factory became profitable in less than 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and
And what a testament to using local resources to really provide a solution for a challenge in an area.
exactly. So the energy now comes to them free of charge,
Yeah.
in the sense that resources are from their own place, and especially as small hydropower, it doesn't cost anything other
Yep.
than the initial investment and maintenance, which was taken care of by the factory itself. And there are a lot of business activities came up around that,
Mm.
when electricity was available, especially food processing and food preservation. All those cattle herders, they have thousands of cows, but they never milk the cow because there was no use of milk.
Mm.
Even if they milk it, there is no place to sell it, or give it
Oh.
before it gets spoiled. So it's such a remote areas. So they could start cold storage and milk processing. They started making many products out of milk, also meat
Wow.
preservation. So all kinds of economic transformation happens. So this is one of my best memories of Nigeria experience.
Yeah, well that's a great introduction to a really practical project and a practical way that UNIDO works around the world and how they're looking at clean energy. And so specifically, what are some of the things that they're doing in clean cooking now? Because there's some parallels where, I'm sure they're looking at local resources, what fits, what doesn't, regionally, what do things look like appropriately in terms of, implementation. And clean cooking also has some of those adjacent sector impacts that you really see when you implement a program. And so, can you just give a quick overview of some of the clean cooking activities UNIDO is involved in?
First of all, UNIDO is expanding or developing its global impact program for clean cooking. The original idea was to support 20s. As 2.3 billion people in the world are, still using traditional fuels, and they don't have access to clean cooking.
Yeah.
Majority of this 2.3 billion, that is around 85% of them, they are concentrated in 20 highly populated countries like China, India, Indonesia, Nigeria, Ethiopia, like that, 20 countries.
Yeah.
So we thought, if you can make some changes in these 20 countries, it will actually reflect on the SDG 7 achievement. It's a easier and faster way to achieve SDG by 2030.
Definitely.
So our program actually focusing on these 20 countries. The target was to develop 20 child project in each of these countries and shift at least 2 million households altogether from the traditional fuels to modern clean cooking solutions. Then, as we see in these 20 countries, 10 countries are in Asia and 10 countries are in Africa. But in Asia, they are all focusing on LPG.
Okay.
And there is a big drive to achieve clean cooking through LPG and other electric cooking, etc. But what the support is needed in African countries.
Sure.
Yeah. So our program started refocusing on sub-Saharan African countries. So we have now a program in Tanzania, which is the flagship program.
Okay.
Of the global program, which is implementing our model. It's a private sector driven approach and using local resources to move away from the traditional cooking. So we have a big target in Tanzania, that is at least 200,000 households in Dar es Salaam city.
Okay.
To be switched to ethanol cooking. And why
Okay.
we focus on city urban centers is a point need to be considered, because when we talk about you go many of these events and talk to people, and everybody is talking about rural areas. Most of them want to do things in the rural areas, but in rural areas the fuel is free.
Sure. You can go right outside and pick up wood, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
available.
then it is very difficult to produce any new technologies, which especially they have to pay also. So in our model, the private sector has to drive this, and private sector is looking for profit.
Yes.
And profit comes from large numbers, market. So you have to create a market for private sector. Then private sector will take over and push the things. So how do you do that? You need the government have to put in place a conducive and policy and regulatory environment. There should be a good level playing field.
Yep.
Compared to other cooking sector. The charcoal is completely in the unorganized sector. It is not taxed. It is not accounted. Nobody knows the whereabouts.
It's an informal market. Charcoal's an informal market.
Exactly. On the other hand, LPG is highly subsidized by both the industry as well as the governments. So any other whether it is electric cooking, e-cooking, or ethanol, or biogas, pellets, whatever, they have to compete with this kind of so it is very, very hard. On top of that, unlike electricity access, clean cooking access is entirely a different game, because electricity access is something which you don't have. And if somebody is coming and asks, "Oh, do you want some electricity?" Yes, of course. Why not? But cooking has been going on for thousands of years,
Yeah.
and whether they have a modern technology or old technology, people will somehow cook. So it's
They manage to find their resources and cook with whatever they have.
so we are doing a behavior change uh, project, right?
Hmm.
How to change the behavior of the people, and accept a new way of looking at things. That's
Yeah,
quite
exactly.
challenging. So it's not compared to electricity access provision, clean cooking access provision is quite hard.
Yeah, I really appreciate you outlining some of those challenges. And rural versus urban, do we want to reach rural areas with clean cooking? Absolutely. But when you're partnering with the private sector, you also have to see some movement in the market in order for it to be attractive. And so, starting in those urban areas where there's large population, you can really make an impact. And also, supply chains are more developed. So, it's easier for these private sector partners to be successful, I would imagine. And then also looking at the regulatory environment, looking at behavior change. There are a lot of things that go into changing somebody's behavior around cooking. And so I know you mentioned UNIDO has a bioethanol project in Tanzania. Can you just explain a little bit about UNIDO's perspective on bioethanol and what that actual project looks like in Tanzania?
As I mentioned earlier, our approach, the model is based on three pillars. One of the pillar is a market enabling framework, we call it, which I just now explained what is
Hmm.
market and how this market can be enabled. So from the experience, we have learned that people will accept technology, especially clean cooking technology, depend upon the price of the fuel,
Mm,
price of the stove, as well as of its availability and reliability.
yeah.
So we need to many sometimes I see many small pilot projects here and there. Uh, they their indicator of success is a number of stoves disseminated, and most of the time these projects don't succeed because the consideration of the supply of the fuel is not there.
Mm,
So they disseminate stove, but people cannot use it because fuel is not available
sure.
for them.
And
So
by available, that could mean either having physical access or affordability, correct?
both. It
Hmm.
has to be price at par or less than their usual fuel, which they
Hmm.
use, maybe charcoal
Hmm.
or wood. How much money they spend on those fuels? It should be at least it should be less than the price they are paying. At least it should be equal.
Sure.
Then we can convince them the other conveniences, other
Yeah.
benefits of less pollution,
Hmm.
cleaner environment, the convenience. All those comes only after the price.
Yeah.
uh, and availability means once this finish, you need to get it. within a walking distance or nearby, shop or anywhere, because it is a convenient product of convenience. If not available when it is needed, I think people will lose interest.
Yeah, and I think especially looking at this in context, if you're living in the US or Europe, you're probably not walking to go get your daily energy. You have it right in your house. But for a lot of the world, they're buying their household energy on a daily basis. So having that accessibility where they can walk down the street and get it is really critical.
Yes, yes. So those are the criteria we were looking at when designing the project. So what we did is to select and empower some distributors,
Hmm.
and it is distributors are private entrepreneurs, and they are responsible for distribution of stove as well as fuel
Okay.
in a in a in a earmarked area for them. Um,
So these distributors have a district that they are selling stoves and
yes,
fuel in.
yes, this is to ensure that they don't just sell the it is to ensure that these people distributor is responsible for making available the fuel in that
Hmm.
particular area.
Hmm.
So we by contract we don't allow them to sell anywhere else.
Okay.
Uh, uh, so that is one of the criteria. Then so this one key element of this MEF or market enabling framework is a subsidy. That subsidy is for the stove,
Hmm.
because the price of the stove, about $40 is not affordable to many of the residents in Dar es Salaam. So we are to bring that stove price down, and we used subsidy scheme and the fund, that grant fund was provided by Global Environmental Facility
Okay.
and later supplemented by the European Union.
Okay. And
Uh,
so what does that subsidy bring the price down to that's an affordable range for people?
yeah, we brought it down to $20, and after a couple of years of trials, we realized that that $20 price is also very high. So we had to increase the subsidy level to bring the price down to a $13 bracket.
Okay. And you've seen that that has been affordable for most people to purchase a $13 stove.
Yes, it has actually improved the.
Hmm.
So here is uh, the advantage of carbon credit. You cannot. Means our project, of course, was fortunate to have the grant facilities from the donors,
Hmm.
but that project will finish in a few years, and then what?
Right.
So how you will how somebody can replace this subsidy and bring the price down to an affordable level, and that is where the importance of carbon credits.
Mm.
Uh, but carbon credit is also useful only if some buyers are willing to pay in advance. Otherwise, stoves cannot go in a reduced price.
Hmm. And can you explain why that is? Um, just give a quick overview of how carbon programs work and why it's important for that prepayment of carbon in order for operations to continue moving forward.
This is mm, the most important aspect is the price, affordability of the technology. Um, if you want to introduce a new technology at a high price, yes, people like the technology, but if they cannot afford, we are talking about people um, living on a daily wage, or amount of money they can spend for their cooking needs is very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it is important that the price of this any technology we are introducing should at least cheaper, or at least the same price as what they are currently using. For
Mm-hmm.
example, improved cook stove, or 3-stone stove, which normally a lot of people use, which
Yeah.
cost almost nothing.
And a 3-stone stove, just for listeners who might not know, literally 3 stones placed together with wood in the middle of it, and you put your pot on top of the stones to cook.
Right.
Yeah. And so, in terms of the affordability, when a business is able to establish a carbon program and generate carbon credits that they can then later sell, I mean, that program takes a while to get going. It doesn't happen instantaneously, it's not a quick online process. And so, in the meantime, as they're building their business, it's important to have some of that early investment.
Right. You put it very correctly.
Yeah. And so, when these businesses are able to either utilize a subsidy for a little while through a grant program or carbon credits, then what opportunities does that open up?
For an ethanol stove or ethanol cook stove business, I think most the profit of the company comes from the sale of ethanol.
Mm.
So so it also depend on number of stoves sold by the company to the market, the volume. So if a company learn how to match all the constraints in the market and find
Hmm.
a good business model, and incorporate carbon credit in that, I think they can have a very profitable business.
Hmm. Yeah, so with that additional subsidy or carbon credit placed on the stove, it makes it affordable for consumers who are then going to continue using the fuel if it's in that affordability range. And that's where those businesses are really successful, is making revenue off of the fuel and providing that continued clean energy for their customers.
Yes. And going back to your initial question of our program in Tanzania,
Hmm.
um, so market enabling framework, and then we have a private sector support facility where the purpose of that is to develop private sector engaged in this whole process. So private sector produce ethanol, private sector involved in the distribution of ethanol and stuff.
Hmm.
Probably they also manufacture the stoves locally. All these elements are we want to promote. So in Tanzania, I think our partner, the CCL, one of our distributors, they established a bottling plant,
Hmm.
and they also established an assembly line for this the ethanol stove, and employing some people. So job creation
Hmm.
is an important aspect of all this aspect of all this project. So, as I told, we are soliciting increased our um, the distributors from initially from one. Now we have 3 distributors operating in Dar es Salaam. and we are looking forward to solicit more distributors with wider network of distribution systems and other facility infrastructure already to get involved. So that is the main thrust of this program. After Tanzania, we also we were UNIDO was asked by Madagascar to help them to develop a national clean cooking program. So we are now involved in helping the design and development of such a program for Madagascar.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I think you can really see where UNIDO is fitting in to fill some of those gaps in the clean cooking space, whether that's through providing some funding for that initial grant to purchase stoves or put subsidies on stoves, helping out with job creation, really fueling the private sector so that they can be successful. Where do you see some of the biggest gaps that might be preventing progress for UNIDO or some of their partners?
Um, as I explained before, the key biggest gaps in clean cooking, I think the behavioral change issue.
Mm,
So changing the behavior of consumers is the main challenge. So how to do that is a concerted effort by the government. First of all, through conducive good policies and regulatory regimes,
mhm,
which also look into controlling and reducing and gradually eliminating the use of unsustainable charcoal production and wood,
mhm.
fuel wood production and deforestation. Um, that that is one aspect. On the other hand, there is a lot of convincing need to be done for the general public about the health impact of the traditional cooking.
Mhm.
Um, you know, more than 1 million people are dying every year in Africa
Yeah.
because of the indoor air pollution, and this is mostly women and young children. Uh, uh, so, what is the cost of those diseases, respiratory diseases, cancers, all those things because of indoor air pollution?
Mhm.
Uh, there is no analysis available uh, uh, to convince these people. So a lot of advocacy and information dissemination
Mhm.
need to be done to create awareness of the negative impacts of using traditional fuels.
Mhm.
Um, then we need to also ensure the availability and reliability and affordability of modern clean fuels.
Mhm.
This is very important because otherwise, people have no choices to make.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And do you think that that also has an impact on behavior change when somebody actually has a reliable, affordable option in front of them, that they're more willing to try it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also when see some other families using and seeing that benefits and the comfort and the convenience of
Mhm.
modern technologies, I think people will also convert it.
Yeah, definitely. You see your neighbor using something and they love it and they're telling you about it, it makes you want to try it. And so a successful technology can really be impactful even just through word of mouth.
And of course, the biggest another gap is the role of, I will say, private sector need to be enhanced because only uh, private sector can uh, take on such a huge
Hmm.
task. Um, the task is enormous. For example, in um, a billion people in Africa is do not have access to clean cooking, which
Hmm.
translate into a lot of households. So if you take an average household have 5 members, so you can calculate how many households,
Hmm.
and it take a lot of efforts to convert each and every house of that uh, in a short period of time. That is 2030 is just six years away.
Hmm.
So I think private sector need to be mobilized, and enough facilities need to be provided, especially financing,
Yeah.
yeah, for them, so that they can actively participate.
Hmm. Yeah, so I was going to ask you, what are the three elements that you see as most critical to seeing major outcomes in the clean cooking space? But you kind of just went over them, having that government involvement in the regulatory environment and, certain regulatory certainty is really critical, having the behavior change, and then also looking at private sector investment and involvement. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think I have uh, mentioned most of the issues in this, unless you have some ideas.
No, I think you did a great job summing up some of those, major opportunities,
Yeah,
but also real challenges in the clean cooking space today.
yeah, yeah.
You're also involved with the Council on Ethanol Clean Cooking, or CECC. You mentioned that earlier.
Mhm.
Pivot's also a member of that. And
Yes,
so, we're grateful for UNIDO leading the way on that. Can you tell us a little bit about the purpose of the organization and how it started?
yeah. In fact, I was talking about the Global Impact Program for Clean Cooking before, and we conceived the Council on Ethanol Cooking as a networking platform to bring together all these countries,
Mm.
countries,
Hmm.
uh, with a common thread, and we can use this platform to for information dissemination, learning from each other, to introduce partners. We have also, CECC has also partner organization like
Hmm.
Pivot
Hmm.
and other. We have 16 of them. So those organizations actually uh, can use this platform to promote their strategies for scaling clean cooking to these countries.
Hmm.
Also promote cooperation, technical cooperation among themselves, and also transfer of technologies, etc. So
Hmm.
CECC was launched in COP28 in Egypt, and by uh, few countries, that the ministers from Mali, Ivory Coast, and also senior officials from Tanzania and Kenya. They, along with many development partners like CCA, SE4, together we launched it there. And now it is a 21 country platform, and
Wow.
we have another 16 partner organizations, and um, so the objective is to push the clean cooking agenda and scale up things. There are a lot of initiatives on the higher level,
Hmm.
strategic level and policy level. A lot of things are happening, but on the ground, on the ground, if it is not translating to into the households, if the number of households not adopting the new modern clean cooking technologies, I think there is no use. So CECC is there to promote that. We interact directly with the member countries. Our focal points are members are the senior officials from the ministries responsible for clean cooking. So we interact with them and share knowledge, information, and also link with partners and development community to benefit them.
That's great. So an organization to really bring everybody in the sector together, spirit of collaboration, and really help translate some of that regulatory policy to actual implementation on the ground.
Right.
And then I also would be remiss if I didn't mention the recent event that we were both just at. We were both in Paris last week at the IEA Clean Cooking in Africa Summit, which was really a landmark event for the clean cooking sector. And there were a lot of commitments made toward clean cooking efforts in Africa, over $2 billion committed. I just would be curious to hear some of your reflections or anticipations coming off of that event and what you hope to see come out of it.
I share, your feelings. It was a wonderful event, and never happened before.
Yeah.
This summit actually brought together all the key stakeholders at the highest level, and come up with an outcome document which is asking everybody to expedite things and raise the ambition in the area of clean cooking. So in that way, I think it was very successful. I think I appreciate IEA for taking the lead in that, bringing all the stakeholders together, and also especially wherever we go, we hear and means we also realize that financing is a major issue in the in clean cooking, and it was this summit was able to uh, uh, get an enormous pledge of 2.2 billion, and now I feel now the next question is how this could actually percolate to the ground level so that the results can be achieved. So far, there were pledges and commitments, but I also heard from many countries. Officials participated in that summit, also mentioning that it is very important that this financing should reach wherever it need to be. And the experience was in the past that it is take long time and also it's not coming down the way it should. It should. It should.
And I think that's always a challenge, is making sure that promised funding actually gets to where it needs to have an impact, and also that it's expedited so that it actually can be used within a specific time frame. I thought it was encouraging that the IEA did promise to track the funding and help ensure that it was accounted for. So we at least have that bit of accountability there. But yeah, time will tell, I guess, to see what the outcome of this summit really is.
Yes.
Well, we're just wrapping up, Jossy, and I am just so grateful for all of your insights and your expertise, global cooking efforts. But I have to end on just kind of a silly, personal related question on food. And that is, what is your favorite breakfast food and why?
Well,
Do
that's
you eat breakfast? Maybe that's the first question.
that's an interesting question, and exactly, I practice these days intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So I skip my breakfast usually when I am at home
Mm-hmm.
or on the base. But when I am traveling or on for work to different countries, um, I am not sure about my next meal.
Yeah, you gotta take it when you can.
So I try to take breakfast, and I would like to have my favorite is a Spanish omelette and
Okay.
a cup of green tea. That will satisfy me.
That sounds perfect. Well, thanks for sharing. Again, I just am really grateful for you taking the time and also just for being able to listen to a veteran in the clean energy industry. Going all the way back to some of the first electric grids in Nigeria, some of those mini grids, really remarkable. And so just appreciate all of your efforts also with UNIDO and with the CECC and just heading up bioethanol clean cooking in some of these geographies and how important that is going to be as the industry takes shape.
Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you. I think you are doing incredible work, bringing sites from the experts and veterans in this clean cooking field, which is actually very educational. And I also regularly listen to your podcast, which is very informative for me. And keep it going, and let us work together uh, in this challenge. And we have very limited time left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Thank
absolutely. We're so grateful to have partners like you in this space. So thank you so much.
you. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. With over a third of the world's population lacking access to modern solutions and cooking with solid and polluting fuels like wood, charcoal, and kerosene, there are huge global impacts in multiple sectors. Pivot is passionate about opening access to household energy options around the world that also lead to reduced emissions, improved health outcomes, environmental protection, greater purchasing power, gender equity, and so much more. Join us for these personal conversations with farmers, fuel producers, distributors, stove manufacturers, policymakers, and consumers to learn about the dynamics that influence how people cook around the world. Please reach out to us at hello@pivotcleanenergy.org to find out how you can get involved. And we'd also be grateful if you found this information valuable and pass it along to friends, family, colleagues, your mailman, your grocer, anyone you know, and find some way to engage. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts like LinkedIn and Twitter. Check out our website at pivotcleanenergy.org. And of course, follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts so you can catch the next episode when it drops.